Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Amanda Lamb. In today's deep dive conversation with Chelsea Donovan, we're going to talk about some breaking news that happened just a few hours ago as of this recording. Welcome to the program, Chelsea. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to point out that we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. So for updates overnight, you can go to WRAL.com. Chelsea, set the scene for us. What happened at American Tobacco on Tuesday afternoon?
It was very interesting. We were actually on our way to Chapel Hill to cover a homicide and got directed here. And when we showed up, there was a heavy police presence right outside the Durham Bulls Athletic Park at the corner of Blackwell and Jackie Robinson, I believe. And they were centered around a parking garage there, but then they kind of dispersed, and we followed them here right sort of at the center of all this, right next to DPAC, right in front of the Aloft Hotels. The police presence was a lot larger, and there were police officers running on foot. They had canine dogs out. Really, you could tell how emergent the situation was. And this whole area here, kind of in the heart of it all, right in downtown Durham, was completely surrounded by crime scene tape. And we noticed that there was a black vehicle still running that had plowed into a planter right outside of the parking garage, right in front of the Aloft Hotel. And all around it was probably more than a dozen shell casings or bullet fragments. And you could see that the car was still running. So we knew that was sort of the focal point of the investigation. You could see some shattered glass too. And for a good hour, you could see how police were working really hard to try to figure out what was going on. They were, like I said, they were on foot running through the parking garages. So we knew, we thought that there was obviously someone that was in that vehicle that fled on foot that they were looking for. And they were kind of sandwiched kind of right near the athletic park, but sandwiched in between two parking garages that were sort of the hotbed of the investigation, as well as the car.
And for people that may not know this area, I mean, this is a really popular area. People work here, people stay here. There's residential, there's businesses. I mean, tell us about that particular area.
Yeah, it's been revitalized. It's right in the heart of everything. I mean, it's a walkable area, but it's also got a lot of residences. Some of these old warehouses have been converted to apartments. So just looking around right now, I mean, you could see so many people with babies walking with strollers. There's people walking around constantly with their dogs. There's a lot of restaurants in this area, sports bars. I mean, everything is very pedestrian heavy here, not to mention just some big names around here. DPAC, which has got a lot of people. There's hotels. So it's very busy this time of day. So to have this sort of happen in broad daylight, at 10:30, obviously people are at a high level of concern.
Absolutely. And so far, your understanding is that some people were shot at, but that nobody's been injured?
Yeah, so first we knew that Durham police just responded to a shots fired call. And when they got here, they just noticed that there was damage to this vehicle outside of the hotel. And about an hour later, they did make mention that the vehicle was actually a stolen vehicle, and two men were inside of it. They got out and started shooting at two people that were actually on foot in this area, which you wouldn't come to expect at 10:30 in the morning, outside of a very, very busy hotel. So we knew now, as the investigation kind of was unfolding, that there were two people inside the stolen vehicle and two people that were shot at. But police didn't make mention of any injuries, but they also didn't make mention of anybody that had been apprehended, which sort of was alarming for folks that were kind of watching this all unfold, including ourselves, because you could tell just how emergent the scene was with how active the police were as it kind of was all unfolding.
Absolutely. Have you been able to talk to any witnesses?
So we started kind of walking around to talk to folks that are in the area, and we happened upon a gentleman named Raphael Hayes, who looked at me and said, "That's my car." And we said, "Oh my gosh, this black vehicle here that is, surrounded in shell casings and crime scene tape is your car," which is just...
So the car was stolen from him.
Right, which was unbelievable in itself. So he said, "This is my car, my baby's car seat's in the back, my phone's in the back, all my papers in the back, everything that I need." And I said, "Oh my God, how'd you get down here?" He said, "Police called me an hour ago and said, your car is in front of a hotel here in Durham. It's the center of this shooting investigation. Can you come down here?" And he said, "Yes, I reported it stolen on January the 2nd. So here he is 8 days later looking at his vehicle that he woke up, 8 days ago, and it wasn't in his driveway. That's now part of this investigation. So he was just, you could tell he was completely shell shocked. And who knew that his vehicle that he reported stolen would be here 8 days later? So it was just an unbelievable interview to talk to this guy. You could just see that he was just shocked at what was going on.
Yeah, and unbelievable that you found him.
Right.
Well, we'll be back after the break with more on breaking news in Durham with Chelsea Donovan. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm talking with Chelsea Donovan about a shooting in Durham in broad daylight in a popular commercial area. So unfortunately, Chelsea, as you know, we have seen violence in Durham before. We report on it on a regular basis, but it really brings it into focus, I think, when it happens in a commercial district in broad daylight. This happened a couple hours ago as we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Are people still unnerved about it, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, you can see people that are walking around taking pictures. We've gone into a couple different restaurants and even some of these residences, and just to say, "Hey, did you hear anything? Because someone had to have heard the shots, even the people at the hotel." And it's definitely the talk of this part of the town, as people are literally, you can tell that they're walking here, standing and gawking and taking pictures of sort of the car that's still here and still running. But yes, it's definitely kind of, I think, left people on edge, because a broad daylight shooting mid-morning before lunch in this area that's very residential, so much to do, pedestrian heavy, is just not something that you come to expect.
Right, and it's right near the Durham Performing Arts Center. As you said, it ended in front of a hotel, also not far from the Durham Bulls Athletic Park. So a lot of people work and live in that area and obviously walk around that area. So you were talking about, or in the first part of the show, what the police have told you. It's still very early. Do we know anything about, we don't know anything about the suspects, I know, but do we know anything about the people who were shot at other than the fact that nobody was injured?
Right. That's all we've been able to glean so far. Yeah, I think that's the big question, is where are these two suspects, and are these victims okay, who were on foot, just happening to walk by this hotel? It's like, were they targeted? Was this random? I think there's so many questions that are still sort of unfolding as folks try to piece together the investigation. But yeah, I mean, where are these guys, and how are these people doing? I mean, we can see bullet fragments and shell casings and windows that are busted out. So it really sort of begs the question as to where these people are and how they're doing.
Absolutely. And, you are sitting in the front of a news car. You are putting your stories together for the evening news, the afternoon and evening news. So we really appreciate you doing this. What are some other things that you hope to learn, tonight, this afternoon, and the coming days about this situation?
Yeah, I just feel like the motive behind this, a broad daylight shooting, is interesting. A lot of times in the news, we get there sort of maybe an hour or two, depending on geography, as to, we arrive after all of this is kind of wrapped up, right? So to come here and to see just how, just the chaos and how it's all unfolding around us is interesting in itself. But I think just the timing of all this and the location is interesting. You wouldn't come to expect that here. And then also what led up to this, we know the car was stolen, but I'd love to know more about if these people were targeted and who these suspects were. It's just a lot of questions that are still sort of swirling about.
Right. And you have to believe that someone who would do something like this would know, given the area, that this was going to have a big impact. This was not something that was, just going to be shoved under the rug. This was going to be a shooting, regardless of whether anybody gets hurt, that people are going to pay attention to, for sure.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like where we are, this area, there's surveillance cameras everywhere. So I would hope that those would be helpful in this investigation, given there's just, there's restaurants and hotels. There's got to be a lot of camera or video surveillance that they're combing through right now, trying to put the pieces together to the puzzle. So hopefully that will lend itself well to the investigation.
Absolutely. Well, Chelsea, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to do this. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. Again, we will update you in the notes on this show and also on WRAL.com about this developing story. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email waiting in your inbox every morning with Triangle news, events, and headlines to get you ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.